Hello and welcome to our special panel, What Can SCORCH, SCSM and SCVMM do for SCOM? We are happy to be here at SCOMathon for you who are live here and for those who watch later the recording. We have prepared an expert discussion and provide you insights with two other experts on topics for Virtual Machine Manager, Orchestrator, and Service Manager. My name is Christian Heidkamp, and I will lead you through the topic of Virtual Machine Manager and discuss a bit on the integrations to Operations Manager. With me, I have Greg Chairman. Greg, please a short introduction from your side.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Greg Charman. I am the VP of Solutions and Services at Kelverion. We're IT automation specialists, and I've been using System Center Orchestrator for over 15 years. So I have lots of experience around all things automation and integration and automation using System Center Orchestrator.
Great. And Markus, please.
Yeah, hello, everybody. My name is Markus Köstner. I'm lead developer of the product suite Axando at Axians, and I'm using System Center Service Manager since 10 years and have many experience with custom scenarios integrating System Center products in our product suite. So I'm looking forward to present some customer scenarios we have faced in the field.
Wonderful, great. So, and we dive right in there, and I pass first on to the Service Manager and then the Orchestrator, later Virtual Machine Manager and Operations Manager. So first off, Markus, the stage is yours.
Okay, so thank you very much, Christian. I'm now going to present you some scenarios we faced the customer and implemented in our product. So how to implement, how to connect Service Manager with Microsoft System Center Operations Manager. So as you can see, the System Center suite can integrate with the different products very well. And in our scenario, we have the Service Manager at the center, providing the information or providing capabilities to make incident management, service requests, and so on. And we can integrate very well with a config manager for providing some information about patching and remote control the config manager to do deployment. Or we can integrate it with the orchestrator for automation and so on, and doing great stuff for implementing automation in different scenarios. So that's a really key value we can provide here. And of course, we can also integrate with the Operations Manager and doing stuff with monitoring. And I'm going in deep dive now, integrating Operations Manager and the Service Manager here. What we did at our customer side. Yeah, what have we done? We have, of course, with the Axando product suite, we provide a portal, and the portal is actually providing the capability to design and size your services, to document how your services are running. And we can use, or the customer can use this portal to create services, to connect the services with existing assets like machines or databases or services, you name it. Everything you have, every object you have in for example, Operations Manager or in the Service Manager, you can connect to your services that they depend on that assets, and can start. First of all, you can document that there is a connection to that asset, and the second win is that you can monitor if your service is running well, because if the monitoring checks if your assets are working, we have the connection to the services if they run well at that point of time. So last but not least, we bring the services, these designed and documented services, back to the SCOM as a distributed application. But you don't have to use the distributed application designer. It's done for you with our product with a modern web UI, and you have then the benefit that you see the health status of your services in SCOM in the distributed application view. Yeah, what we then do is to integrate it further is we check for new alerts in this in SCOM, alerts affecting the designed and the documented and the created services in our product. If this happens, that there is an alert, we can then create incidents in the service manager, providing valuable additional information, and we can do automatic ticket routing. Like, you know, we have decided that some groups of people are responsible for the services. So we can do the ticket routing to this people, to these groups, to these support users. And then we can, of course, sync the results between the service manager and operations management. Like, you know, the people are working on the ticket and they are closing it, or the alert is away, is done, it has solved itself. Then we can close the ticket, of course, and that's a good point of automation at that point, so that there's no additional effort for the support users or for the monitoring team. Yeah, I've put some screenshots in here so that you can get an idea how it is working. This is the web portal where we have opened the service, or one service. You see here at the top, you have some information like the service ID or the name of the service. And we can see here that is synced, that there is some checking done already with the monitoring, and we have then some grouping there, like, you know, some service dependency group where you can say that your service is dependent on other service, that you have some base service, like, you know, a database service or something like that, and you're using, or that this service is used by another service, that can be documented too. And we have some logical server groups where you can put some machines host there, and the service is actually running on, or we have some application component groups, or, you know, you can name it whatever you want. That's free definable, and you can put your assets under these groups so that you have a better overview what assets are used by your service. We have then the possibility that you can search for objects in the SCOM or in the Service Manager database, you know, where you have your CMDB, and you can see, can search for the assets the services uses. Here I have a screenshot. Oh, sorry for the quality. It's of the Operations Manager, the same service where we can see the distributed application here. With the service at the top, and then the application component group and the logical server group, and under that the actual entities of the operations manager. Little bit of a sum up now. The benefits, I think, is very strong and flexible. The data model we provide here to put your services together, to integrate the information of the operations manager and the service manager, to get a good overview and to document and design your services. It's very extensive at that point, so we really are open to customer wishes and real life scenarios here. We have a highly automatable solution, and if you're interested in it, please visit our website here. Look forward to get in contact with you. Yeah, and with that, I pass over to Craig for his information.
Okay, thank you, Marcus, for that. So yeah, I'm going to talk to you about System Center Orchestrator and what it can do for Operations Manager. So the first thing is Orchestrator is a tool that not everybody knows out, even though it's been in the System Center suite and still since 2012. So what Microsoft did with Orchestrator is they put the product out there to allow you to integrate and automate all of the System Center tools together to allow you to drive automated processes. So Orchestrator has what are called integration packs for Operations Manager, Service Manager, Virtual Machine Manager, Config Manager, and Data Protection Manager, and they're bi-directional, so we can actually pass information from one tool to another to actually drive and automate end-to-end processes. So from an operations manager point of view, we can pick up alerts at operations manager and allow them to integrate into other tools. So as Marcus has mentioned, there's an integration directly into service manager for a bi-directional connection and configuration, but we can use Orchestrator to extend that out to other service desks. So we can actually allow operations manager alerts to be picked up and triggered and forwarded into other service desks. We can even use Orchestrator to pick up requests from service manager or other service desks, for example, for virtual machine provisioning. And Orchestrator can take that in and then read that data, what you want to do and what's virtual machine and the similar. And then we can push that into virtual machine manager to actually instruct virtual machine manager to provision a virtual machine of the size as requested in the portal. And once virtual machine managers confirm that, we can then go back into operations manager and use Orchestrator to put the virtual machine under management in operations manager, and equally go off to, say, configuration manager to drive application deployment and software patching onto that virtual machine. And you can even then go into data protection manager, for example, to set up data protection manager to do backup of that virtual machine on a provision basis. So it allows you to integrate all of the tools together to actually drive them automatically to simulate the same manual process that you're doing today with the System Center suite. So that's where Orchestrator comes into the system to integrate, orchestrate and automate the System Center tools and tie them into the other wider enterprise management tools and capabilities that you might be looking to use. Orchestrator has been around for a number of years, but there are a couple of releases that are critical. The recent ones is 2022 and the 2025 release that's just been shipped. So in 2022, the key thing, if you're using Orchestrator today, the big thing that 2022 brought in was they now made it a 64-bit application. So Orchestrator 2019 and all of its predecessors were 32-bit applications. Orchestrator 2022 was the first version that brought in native 64-bit. Advantage of that, so we've got now a longer-term viable product because it's using the modern standards that everybody else is using. It can now leverage the modern 64-bit DLLs, SQL drivers, and frameworks, and improves the underlying security and frameworks because we're using the modern underlying pieces that are constantly tested and enhanced. So Orchestrator can now benefit from all of those. And equally, for those of you using it, what you'll immediately notice if you're talking about 64 is we can now leverage direct PowerShell commandlets. So because the bulk of PowerShell today is all 64-bit and 64-bit things, so it's very difficult to interact with them through that system. So added a load of extra bits. So we've got direct access to 64-bit. There's a new web console and web service delivered as part of the 2022. But there have been issues with 2022. There's been two update rollups and some hot fixes for that. And currently the .NET version that's used in 2022 is actually an end-of-life version. So with 2025, what Microsoft have added is further updates and encryptions. They now support .NET 8, so that's the latest and most secure version of the .NET framework, which is on one of their long-term support channels. So we've got long-term support on a supported version of .NET underpinning Orchestrator. They've added transport support for TLS 1.3. And you can now use group managed service accounts for your authentication, so making a much more secure and manageable platform. And also means with 2025 that we're extending the support for Orchestrator out to 2035. So standard support is 2030, with extended support out to 2035, which is quite key for anybody who's using Orchestrator today or looking to use Orchestrator, because there had been rumors back in 2016 it would be going away. And as you can now see, Microsoft are providing support out to 2035. But not only has it added some new features, Microsoft have resolved a whole load of the issues that they'd introduced in 2022 while rolling out to 64-bit. So the platform events now actually track and reported correctly. So you actually get errors off the platform. They've resolved issues with the secure SSH if you want to connect to Linux, Unix, or any mainframe systems, and most of the storage and backup platforms that you could orchestrate from within Orchestrator or using SSH. So that's now been updated, and it's got the latest version of P-Link at November 2025 when it was packaged. Resolved issues with the query database. They've resolved the runbook tester. There are issues with how the data was getting presented on that, and they've done a number of fixes to the web service so that the Orchestrator console actually reports correctly. So 2025 is a much more capable platform, and has got a lot of the issues and challenges that people had seen with 2022 resolved and fixed through. But if you're looking to move to 2022 or Orchestrate 2025 from an earlier Orchestrator platform, there are still some challenges that you need to resolve and watch out for. So the first one is PowerShell. Because we are now in a 64-bit application, there is a problem with the PowerShell versioning and the script syntax. Historically, PowerShell scripts that Orchestrator ran in, because it was 32-bit, they were running in PowerShell 1 or PowerShell 2 as a syntax. With 2025, it now supports PowerShell 6, 7, and whatever the future versions for the operating system will be. So it's, as a minimum, PowerShell 4 or above. Issues was that the syntax in PowerShell changed between version 2 and version 3. So if you're using Orchestrator and you've got lots of PowerShell in there and you've written them some while ago, then you may well have PowerShell scripts that have got old syntax, which means that they do not work correctly within Orchestrator 2025 if you bring them across. And a lot of people have written capabilities where they've stepped out of the native Orchestrator processing to get the PowerShell to run on the server operating system to handle the 64-bit memory issues. So all of that will need to be resolved if you're moving across from earlier versions of Orchestrator into 2025. The other challenge is integration packs. Any integration packs written for Orchestrator 2019 and earlier are not compatible with Orchestrator 2022 or 2025. That is because they were written for a 32-bit application. Being a 64-bit application, all of the DLLs and drivers and memory space is completely different for these new versions of Orchestrator, so old IPs will not work. If you have done anything with Kelverion with your Orchestrator platform, all of the Kelverion integration packs are supported for 2022 and 25. So you can move runbooks that are using Kelverion integration packs across without a problem. Microsoft do provide integration packs. So I've mentioned the fact they have ones for the System Center products, Service Manager, VMM, DPM, SCCM, and Operations Manager. Those have all been migrated across. But Microsoft did have some other integration packs that they had provided for earlier versions of Orchestrator. A number of those have actually been deprecated. So there was a FTP integration pack. There was a REST API integration. Those have both been deprecated. And there were some other Exchange and HP type products. Although those might exist, they've not been updated. So although they will work on the platform, the target versions of the platforms haven't been updated or enhanced. So in some cases, you'll find that the versions of the target platforms they're talking to are actually end of life. So there are some challenges if you're trying to move with Microsoft, so you need to read the documentation. But there are also a number of people who've used Community or CodePlex integration packs. Back when Microsoft released Orchestrator in 2012, they encouraged the automation community to build free open source integration packs. A number of people did build some, and people have continued to use those. Those integration packs are no longer available anywhere. The Codeplex site that we're on disappeared in 2017, but those are all written for 32-bit and cannot be ported. So if you do have Community or Codeplex, you'll need to look for other ways of integrating or achieving those same problems within Orchestrator. So that's a bit about where Orchestrator can go and what you can do. And obviously, if you've got some in-house developed integration packs, we have got some customers that I've dealt with who have got those. You will have to rewrite those as well because they will have been built for 32-bit. But what can we do? What can Orchestrator do for Operations Manager? Well, one of the key things that we do from this is integration for alerts and incident ticket processes to help people automate and manage their incident ticket processes and actually run automated diagnostics. So to give you an idea, I work with a large insurance provider who uses Operations Manager to manage some over 6,000 servers, virtual machines on VMware and SQL and Oracle DBSs and a whole load of other infrastructure around the back of it. They use ServiceNow for their incident management process, and they've got 24 support groups who need to look at these alerts that are coming in from Operations Manager and deal with the tickets. And they raise anywhere between 400 to 500 incident tickets a week because of the complexity and the size of their infrastructure. So they are using Orchestrator as an end-to-end ticket management system between Operations Manager and ServiceNow. So Orchestrator is watching Operations Manager for all new alerts that are coming in. The customer has provided some rules which determines if a ticket, if the alert is ticket worthy. So we look at the alert, and based on rules that they've defined, we then actually will go and say, yes, this is an alert that needs to be raised in an incident ticket. We'll check ServiceNow to see if an incident ticket already exists because they have issues that flap. So raises alert, we create a ticket, system automatically resolves itself, the alert disappears, and then it raises up again, you know, a day or two later. So we don't want to keep raising tickets. So if there's an existing ticket, we update it. If there's no ticket there, we then determine the resolver group based on the rules that we've got and raise a ticket directly into ServiceNow with their support group. When it's closed, when the ticket is resolved in ServiceNow, we pick that up and go back to Operations Manager and make sure the alert's been closed. So if it's a health alert, it's closed itself. If it was a trigger alert, then we'll go back in and close it. If SCOM closes the alert automatically from a health, then we'll go back and make sure the incident ticket, if it hasn't been resolved in ServiceNow, then we'll go back and actually resolve it in the ServiceNow system in that complete bi-directional interface. And we're also going on and doing diagnostics and remediation type functions that are starting to build out, so automatic diagnosing and fielding that. And to give you some idea of the sort of benefits they're getting, by automating this process, they're estimating they're saving at least the equivalent of 1.5 full-time people per year by not having people manually picking up tickets, raising them into ServiceNow, and then doing that initial triage process to work out which support team should be dealing with it. And as we go on and build out the diagnostics functions using Orchestrator to run diagnostics and then automatic remediation through Orchestrator for a lot of their known issues, those sort of savings will significantly increase over time. So that's what Orchestrator can do for Operations Manager, save you time, effort, and integration into other third-party systems. So with that, I'll hand you over to Christian to talk to you about Virtual Machine Manager.
All right, thank you very much, Greg, for that insight into the Orchestrator. So now it's my turn to come to Virtual Machine Manager. And well, some of you know me from doing a lot of management pack development and sessions around the management pack for System Center Operations Manager for SCOM. So, but in the end, well, I do also frequently use Virtual Machine Manager for administrating and automating the environments I'm working in. So, and I'd like to share some thought on this today. And what I've also learned and where really VMM can help to use in a system center operations manager world. And there might be actually more than you think, because there's like one question basically to you. How do you monitor your virtual machines on Hyper-V? Well, think about it. If you have Hyper-V, or well, maybe extend it if you have vSphere, VMware vSphere. Actually, the virtual machine manager supports Hyper-V and vSphere. And I think that's important to know. And when I get later to the overview of the support version, it supports really until the very latest of VMware vSphere as well. So here in this slide, I'll give you a quick overview of the integrations of the virtual machine manager, which is important for this. First, we have the integration to orchestrator. So that's what Greg just spoke about. So you can automate like VM deployment, VM start, VM stop, creating checkpoints in Hyper-V, or also creating a snapshot in vSphere, VMware vSphere. So that is all possible through the out-of-the-box free integration that comes with the System Center portfolio. The other part down here, which is like important now, what can do Virtual Machine Manager do for Operations Manager? Well, that's obviously a management pack, right? So, and this management pack is very powerful because it has both directions where we can walk on, and I'll give you a demo in a moment. So quick information for you. Again, how do you monitor your virtual machines in Hyper-V? You use Virtual Machine Manager. So why do I have to install Virtual Machine Manager actually to monitor my virtual machines? Yeah, that's through the integration, because if you roll out Virtual Machine Manager, you already have all the inventory in there, and you're typically also authorized at the right level to do the monitoring as well. So it's not only management, so it's also could be also called virtual machine monitor, if you like, right? So obviously, no, it's VMM, virtual machine manager, but it has a lot of monitoring functionality included. So for example, for the management server, well, there are services running which are monitored, and there's the event log. All of this goes actually across the management pack into the operations manager. And I will run you quickly through the integration steps you need to do for that in a moment. But in the end, there are a set of scenarios I want to go across. So there's the database on the SQL Server. Obviously, that is monitored by the SQL management pack, but the discovery and the security of the runners profiles all done automatically during the onboarding process when you build basically integration between VMM and SCOM. Then you have your Hyper-V hosts, and obviously that's typically the main thing. You have mainly an agent on there, like a SCOM agent, but you can also have the VMM agent on there, and then you can monitor the entire availability and performance of your Hyper-V hosts, basically, which is really important because only this way you have control over if you can start more VMs, or if your cluster, what the state of the Hyper-V cluster is at. Further, you can actually do the management and the monitoring of the virtual machine. So, and that is regardless if you're having a Hyper-V or vSphere. So this is availability monitoring, performance monitoring, like CPU, RAM, disk of the virtual, like total virtual disk usage, for example, on the virtual machine. And that information is part of VMM, and through the management pack integration, it gets into SCOM. Then we have like a library where we can do a couple of actions on that. So even through SCOM, we can do things like basically a recovery task, or we have tasks in SCOM where we can start, stop, pause, and create checkpoints for VMs running on Hyper-V. Then we have the vCenter integration for vSphere, like Broadcom VMware vCenter, basically what's would be the correct name. And we can also perform tasks on that. One of the key tasks is also migrating, because we have customers migrating from A to B, for example, migrating from vSphere into Hyper-V. And there have been some improvements also on the latest VMM version 2025. I'll get to a moment too. And then we have the MAC and IP addresses pool also, where we do monitoring for. Really underestimated, but are the reports, but they're really helpful here. And there are a lot of data in the OpsDB and the data warehouse, where we collect a lot of data and store it there. Like, for example, this is the perfect point to give you capacity utilization information across your data center environment, like your on-prem data center environment, right? And I'll talk about this already now. If you have the Azure Arc integration, which we'll add in a moment, it also collects that data. So you can also have that data from the Azure VMs, basically part of this here as well. Then we have the host group forecasting. So we have forecasting reports about, this is just an extract about host groups, SAN usage, but there's also forecasts about VM usage, network usage. And then we have the actual utilization reports of the host. And we have something like the power saving plans. So if you can do optimizations on that. And then we have virtualization as well. For the candidates where it helps to identify physical computers that are good for converting to virtual machines. That's more like a historic one because we don't have so many physical computers anymore, but still these reports, I just want to point them to you because that's really something what VMM can do for SCOM. So there's one other feature which is very powerful. It's called the performance and resource optimization in the virtual machine manager. So, and that only comes into play if you combine VMM and SCOM. So basically, it's a set of, there are 4 management packs you import, and these management packs basically guide you through an optimization process. So, and whenever there's something called like an alert, and it targets a class which is enabled for so-called performance and resource optimization, like for example, disk usage. There's a pro tip, which or a hint basically, which gives you performance suggestion for performance improvements. And in the end, you can also trigger a script then in the end to do remedial actions. So let's say you have undersized a virtual machine, which constantly bangs at 100%. You could automatically, based on the alert that we have not enough CPU usage, you can increase then in a certain frame, basically the CPU on that virtual machine, like without interruption. Of course, you can just resize the virtual machine. So great utilization. And much more important, sometimes the other way. Let's say you have somebody in your development department and they say, well, I need a VM with 128 gig memory and 12 vCPUs. And yes, well, it's the manager, you give it to them. And after a while, you look at the resource utilization, you see, well, they're only using like 32 gig of memory. And this way you can basically reclaim unused resources, which then in the end reflects in a cost saving here. So very powerful feature. Let's look a bit on the supported operating system for Virtual Machine Manager. So I'll just have obviously we have Virtual Machine Manager VMM 2022, which supports 2022 and Windows 11 since that. It also supports the Azure Stack HCI hyperconverged infrastructure clusters at 21, like basically from the second part of 21 and the second part of 22, including update rollup 1 and a bunch of Linux operating systems as well. So this is one of the key is Linux as well, because Microsoft has recognized that you're not only running Windows on the Hyper-V stack, but a lot of Linux, especially if you also have vSphere in place. 25 VMM 2025 brings support for Windows Server 25, and yes, we love Microsoft for renaming things. We have now Azure Local. Azure Local is basically the new name for Azure Stack HCI, which has support here. And again, a larger list of Linux operating systems are added for support. So haven't ever tried Rocky, but one of the others I'm more familiar with. I'm using them. All right, let's have a look at support for managing Hyper-V host and hyperconverged infrastructure. So this is a little, basically to give a little metric for you. So there is one which is a bit of a challenge, which is up here, because we know many still have 2016 Windows servers out there. And if you want to go to VMM 2025, this one is not there anymore. But it is possible to run multiple instances of Virtual Machine Manager and also have multiple instances of Virtual Machine Manager connect to SCOM, to one single SCOM management group. So that is possible. So in case you still have those servers, you might want to think of a side-by-side deployment of 2019, 2022, or 2025. And same applies to HCI and Azure Local, although here the customers typically upgrade a bit quicker. Linux support, we see 2025 has an unmatched long list now of various distributions that are supported, including versions. For at least for that one, we are really on a bright side of support. VMware. VMware has been talked about a lot because we know it has been acquired by Broadcom, and the vSphere and ESXi versions going to new release cycles. And I suppose many on 7 on 8. And both are supported with 2022 and 2025. For 2019, you need update rollout 5 or later in the end. But on that side, we have a very good support status. I added one note here at the bottom because Virtual Machine Manager 2025 comes with a lot faster support for migration or conversion from ESXi to Hyper-V VMs. Okay, we have one more introduction for Azure Arc integration. So Azure Arc, and I'm happy to go into conversation with you later after this session in the Q&A session, or we can meet in the speaker room after the session. I would really like to hear how many are using the Azure Arc enabled Virtual Machine Manager. So the Azure Arc and Azure Virtual Machine Manager is basically gives you the chance to manage your on-premise virtual machines through the Azure portal. So this way, you basically connect the on-prem with the Azure part, and you really have a hybrid management in this case. So I think this is very powerful and helps you really to go through the entire life cycle from one point, which in this case would be on the Azure Arc side. And I think this is the largest change that's been happening over the last years also in Virtual Machine Manager, and also drives still its usage, because if there would not be this integration, Microsoft does more innovations on the cloud, on Azure, Virtual Machine Manager would not be used that much. But for this integration, it kind of gets a new refresh and is revived here to be used. And not to forget, we can integrate all this with System Center Operations Manager, so we see the performance and the monitoring also in there. The hot patching support, I think, has been caught a lot of attention. Like, finally, no restarts, right? You can use the hot patch from day one through the Azure Arc System Center Virtual Machine Manager VMs. And there is one thing that got discontinued. That was, I haven't really met that it was used the Service Provider Foundation, but as now we have Azure Arc enablement, there was not really use case for it anymore. And it basically replaces the SPF feature that was there until 2025. So I have a few words on Operations Manager, and that's basically now the other direction. So now we talked about what can do Service Manager, SCORCH, and VMM do for SCOM, but what can do SCOM actually for the other products? And just in short, I have one slide here, and the answer basically, if SCOM can do something for these others, it's all contained in management packs. So, and at least one of those, typically every SCOM customer has in there. So being a configuration manager or as orchestrator, you have a larger set of management packs. And I only want to point on this one because all others are on the catalog, even if they are deprecated, and this one is still functional. But in this case here, the config manager management pack that's on the Microsoft catalog is no longer supported. But thanks to Kevin Holman, we have support. So go to GitHub and find it there. So with that slide, I'll come to an end and just get everyone here to close the session as well today from our rounds. So let me see if Greg and Marcus are still there.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So thank you, Marcus, and thank you, Greg. So Markus, I think if you like to stay on and come to the speaker room later on, we have some Q&A session there, and Greg for you as well. So if you have any closing remarks, Greg, feel free.
So yes, thank you everybody for attending, and hope you found that session useful on what VMM and the orchestrator can do for SCOM and Service Manager, and how we can help integrate you and help manage those systems.
Great, then thank you, and see you in the speakers room soon.